tonight.
When we fight, we win.
As Democrats gather this week in Chicago for Kamala Harris to officially accept the party nomination. Her campaign rivals hit swing states hoping to win critical votes. Plus, the economy and the election, the crucial role finances will play for voters in 2024. And even as more Israeli captives are confirmed killed.
We do see this as the best opportunity to finally get this over the finish line.
Hope for a hostage release and ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. All this and more tonight on Faith Nation. Well, today is day 2 of the Democratic National Convention in Chicago, where Democrats are fighting for 4 more years in the White House. Good evening and welcome to Faith Nation from the CBN headquarters in Virginia Beach. I'm Brody Carter. Democrats say tonight's theme is a bold vision for America's future, and they plan to draw sharp contrasts between Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump. The Obamas, Barack and Michelle, are both scheduled to take the stage to lay out what Harris could do for the country. Tonight will also feature a ceremonial roll call. It's a vote to select the party's nominee. Harris expected to formally accept the Democratic nomination on Thursday. Last night, an emotional Joe Biden defended his presidency and argued Harris is the right person to finish the job.
She'll be a president respected by world leaders because she already is. She'll be a president we can all be proud of.
Harris is expected to skip tonight's festivities, instead campaigning in battleground Wisconsin. Her rival, Donald Trump, and his running mate, J.D. Vance, also hitting swing states this week. Today, Trump countered the convention with a stop in the Detroit area, focusing on crime. Joining us now is Meredith McGraw, national political correspondent for Politico. Meredith, a pleasure to have you on the show. Unity is a key theme at the DNC, but given the progressive wing's demands and the thousands of protesters outside the convention, do you see any signs of growing unity or further fracturing?
Well, that's certainly the message that the Democratic Party is trying to push this week in Chicago. And it's one of the themes that I think they're going to be really trying to hit hard on tonight. And that's just reflected in the speakers that they're planning to have on stage. You'll have people like Senator Bernie Sanders, who is going to try to reach out and appeal to the progressive wing of the party. But you're also slated to hear from people like Stephanie Grisham, the former White House press secretary for Donald Trump, and some other Republicans who are going to go on stage and make the case for the Harris-Walz ticket. You're also going to be hearing from Doug Emhoff, who is Jewish. He's Vice President Kamala Harris's husband, and he's going to address anti-Semitism, which has been a concern, especially with the war in Gaza, and how some left wings of the party have responded to the Biden administration's response. And you're also going to be hearing from 2 of the most popular Democrats in the party, Barack and Michelle Obama, who are also going to be trying to reach out to some of the Democrats who they were able to connect with to deliver his 2 wins for the presidency.
Well, you mentioned anti-Semitism, anti-Zionism. Evangelicals for Kamala is making top headlines. The DNC taking a play out of the GOP's playbook, leveraging faith to appeal to religious voters. So how important is the Christian vote for Kamala Harris?
Well, we've seen how the evangelical vote has continued to be important for Republicans and important for Donald Trump. They are a big part of his coalition. But what you're seeing from the Harris campaign is them trying to reach out to some Christians, evangelicals who have been hesitant about Donald Trump. They've put out ads, and it's all part of this broader coalition building that the Democratic Party has been putting on. They've been hosting phone calls and events with different segments of the party, different segments of the population that they feel that they can make inroads with. And with an election that is going to be decided by a very narrow margin of voters, particularly in these battleground states, moderates, independents, and women, the Harris campaign feels that making these sorts of inroads could ultimately lead to some important gains.
Well, looking at the polling here, Meredith, Kamala currently leads Trump in several key swing states. Which ones will she focus on to secure a win in 2024? And how will the DNC adjust their strategy in response to this recent data?
Well, I think you've seen how Harris getting to the top of the ticket has really transformed the polls. But look, this is still a really tight race, and it is going to come down to these battleground states for both the Trump and the Harris campaigns. Look at them spending time in important Sunbelt states in places like Nevada, Arizona, Georgia, North Carolina, but also, of course, the upper Midwest states and Pennsylvania, which is really emerging as the key state for these two campaigns. With 19 electoral college votes up for grabs, it is critical.
Meredith, you're also an author. You wrote a book. It's Trump in Exile. How does that resonate with voters ahead of November's election?
Well, I wrote this book about Donald Trump's post-presidency, what he was doing since he left the White House and he went down to Mar-a-Lago and up really until he announced his campaign and into the primaries. I was one of the few reporters that was covering him full time. I spent time at Mar-a-Lago and spent time with his team to report out this book. And it just paints a picture of what he was doing, what some of his business endeavors were, and how he was able to go from a political low point after January 6th and after he left office in early 2021 to now being the Republican nominee. And I think if people are interested in how we got to this moment, I think they could find some interesting insights and some fresh new reporting in there that could help them understand what this moment means and how we got here as a country.
Yeah, it certainly sounds like an interesting read. Meredith McGraw with Politico, thank you so much for your insight.
Thanks for having me.
Well, with Harris taking the helm, the American economy remains a top focus of both campaigns.
They'll continue to lead America forward, creating more jobs, standing up for workers, growing the economy, lower the cost to American families so they just have a little more breathing room.
President Biden says Vice President Harris will continue building on the economic progress of his administration. Donald Trump, however, disagrees.
Kamala Harris is an economy wrecker and a country destroyer. Our country will be destroyed if she gets in. She wants to be promoted to the job killer in chief, but much more than job killer. Everything else is going to go bad.
According to a recent CBS News YouGov poll, 83% of likely voters say the economy is the biggest major factor in deciding their vote come November. With that, let's bring in Dr. Jared Pinson, Associate Professor of Economics at Cedarville University. Doctor, thanks for joining us. Inflation, a top issue in this election. Harris has attacked price gouging as a cause of this inflation. She's proposed some pretty steep price controls, and economists, even Donald Trump, have blasted her, criticizing her on this idea. What's your take?
Well, the difficult thing is that the inflation over the last several years was not due to corporate greed. It wasn't due to price gouging. Somehow corporations didn't become more greedy in the last few years than they were before. So these proposals really going to have great economic consequences to them if they go into effect. The last time we saw any sort of major movement at the federal level for price controls was in the early 1970s with President Nixon, and those created a great deal of harm in the economy.
Well, Doctor, how do you think that the U.S. can realistically fund Kamala Harris's recently released cost of living plan, which includes significant initiatives like a $25,000 grant for first-time home buyers, expanded tax credits for middle-class families, and student debt relief?
Reality is neither candidate has budget proposals that can be realistically funded. We've been running trillion-dollar deficits in peacetime, non-emergency time now for several years. We're well past the pandemic. And what both candidates are doing is they're putting out what seems to be popular spending policies, but neither one of them are putting forth any sort of ways to raise that revenue. So no matter who wins, you're going to see deficits continue to increase.
Well, Dr. Kamala Harris has also suggested increasing the tax rate on businesses to 28%. How would that affect consumers?
Well, the biggest thing is when you increase corporate taxes, those corporations are going to look where to increase revenue. So that could either come through higher prices to consumers. It might come through lower dividends to investors. It could just come through lower wage compensation for employers or some combination of that. These are one of the reasons that economists in general favor lower corporate taxes. That also helps spur investment, and spurring investment helps with productivity. That eventually will move towards workers. It might take some time. When you make it more expensive to operate a business, you have all that in reverse.
Well, Doctor, the rate of inflation is slowing down according to the Consumer Price Index, but prices are still much higher than early 2021. Incomes haven't kept up with those prices. Do you think that's why so many people are so unhappy with the economy?
I believe that's the leading cause. And when you say that inflation is slowing, that's correct, but that still means that prices are rising. It's not as if we have deflation. So even if prices are only going up 2.5%, 3%, that's on top of the fact that prices have gone up roughly 25 to 30% over the last 4 years. So yeah, the bleeding has slowed, but there's still bleeding going on. And as you mentioned, the real income, so inflation adjusted income, has not kept up for many Americans. So that is why you're seeing a pullback on certain consumer spending.
Well, Dr. Pinson at Cedarville University, thank you so much for your analysis.
Thank you for having me.
The FBI and U.S. intelligence agencies say Iran is targeting the Biden, Harris, and Trump campaigns by attempting to hack their emails. In a joint statement, they say Iranian hackers sent phishing emails to campaign officials in an attempt to gain access to their communications. The intelligence agencies say Iran is trying to influence the U.S. election because it considers the outcome important to its own interests. Well, recently, the Trump campaign accused Iran of gaining access to an internal document and leaking it to the press. The media did not print that material. Well, we're turning now to the war in Gaza. Israel and Hamas see little hope for a breakthrough in negotiations to secure a ceasefire hostage deal. Israel has accepted a U.S. proposal. Now, Washington is calling on Hamas to do the same. Those talks even more critical today after the IDF recovered the bodies of 6 Israeli hostages who were taken by the terror group on October 7th. New footage released by Israel shows Israeli troops entering a large tunnel in southern Gaza where the victims were found.
We are making an effort to return the hostages under conditions that will allow the maximum number of hostages to be released in the first stage of the deal. I say this clearly. This is a goal I set. But the other thing is to preserve our strategic security assets in the face of great pressures from home and abroad.
Secretary of State Antony Blinken met with leaders in Egypt and Qatar today amid efforts to reach a ceasefire. About 110 hostages remain in Hamas captivity. Israeli authorities believe at least a third of them are dead. Also at stake are the lives of innocent Palestinians in Gaza, where Israel's war against Hamas continues to rage. Well, coming up, stranded in space, the urgent mission to bring astronauts back to Earth when Faith Nation returns. Welcome back. The world is watching and waiting as NASA works to get 2 stranded astronauts home. We're also seeing faith at work in the rescue effort. CBN Washington correspondent Michelle London joins us with the latest. Michelle.
Well, NASA astronaut Butch Wilmore and test pilot Sonny Williams should have returned from their mission weeks ago, but engine failure has prevented that. And as fellow Christians pray for their safety, Wilmore, a longtime church elder, and Williams both have the important treasure of faith with them in outer space. Facing the unknown, both NASA and its stranded crew are checking and double-checking all options so they can get home. But the crew is currently stranded.
So we are finding stuff and we're correcting it and making changes, making updates with our control team.
One rescue possibility, the Boeing Starliner is on hold due to thruster failures and helium leaks. NASA Chief Astronaut Joe Acaba says the team continues to search for answers, but
I do want to put this into perspective. If Butch and Sonny do not come home on Starliner and they are kept aboard the station, they will have about 8 months on orbit.
Which means no likely return until next year. Acaba says there's just not enough insight or data to make a clear decision. Still, he's confident Wilmore and Williams' experience on board the spaceship will keep them safe. Apart from the human logic, in the midst of this uncertainty, both have an invaluable asset.
Faith in the life of an astronaut is eminently important. They are dealing and working with things that the rest of us cannot necessarily wrap our heads around.
Pastor Wenzel Pawlowski leads St. Paul the Apostle Catholic Church in Texas. He's had at least 36 parishioners who were once astronauts, even gifting one with blessings from the altar to serve as a reminder that God is always near.
The Blessed Sacrament is inside that Luna, which Mike Good took with him into outer space. He brought it back so it could be used here every day of the week.
At St. Paul, Pawlowski and his parishioners know the importance of praying over every space mission.
We are connected in an absolutely fascinating way with what goes on in the rest of the universe.
As engineers on the ground scramble to understand the problems, Pawlowski is calling on Christians everywhere to pray for God to intervene. And as for the families of Williams and Wilmore, neither are concerned and expect a later return. Wilmore's wife, Deanna, recently said her husband is content under the circumstances, knowing the Lord is in control. Brody?
Well, it's Michelle London in Washington, D.C. We'll certainly be praying for a safe return home for those astronauts. Well, you know the saying, once in a blue moon? Well, it happened last night. A rare blue supermoon lit up the night sky, an event that only happens about once a decade. It occurs when a blue moon and a supermoon coincide, resulting in an extra bright, extra large full moon. A blue moon happens when there's a full moon twice in a single month, and a supermoon happens when the Earth is closest to a full moon. This is one of 4 supermoons this year, with the next one expected on September 28th. That's pretty cool. Well, coming up next, made for connection, but lonelier than ever. See how one country's fighting an isolation epidemic after this. Welcome back to Faith Nation. The United States Surgeon General recently declared loneliness an epidemic in America. Now, to offset its rise, some are going online to make friends in real life. Apps like The Breakfast and Time Left share similar features to dating apps, but they're all platonic connections. They link strangers who live in the same city by arranging in-person meals at local restaurants. These services often target remote workers and digital nomads who are missing out on face-to-face interaction. According to a February survey from Gallup, fully remote workers are much more likely to feel lonely than on-site employees. And while technology can help people feel connected, too much time online actually leads to a deeper sense of loneliness. CBN medical reporter Lori Johnson shows us how people can help themselves by putting down the iPhone and making in-person relationships a priority.
Like millions of Americans, Ann Hales knows the depression and anxiety caused from feeling isolated.
Well, I was at home, no one there but myself, and it was so lonely I just didn't know what to do.
An introvert by nature, Ann stepped out of her comfort zone by joining a church sewing ministry.
And I've met so many people. My horizons have been broadened, and I don't have that loneliness anymore that I had before. It was terrible.
Ann's story shows how in-person social connection really helps.
Church is what's known as the third place, right behind home and work. People who regularly go to their third place tend to experience less loneliness and have overall better mental health.
Other third places range from clubs to community centers to coffee shops.
This might be going to the small group. This might be adding an accountability group. Or it might just be a conversation on your back porch with a couple friends, as long as you have it regularly.
In his book, Made for People, Justin Early says God's plan involves living in community.
We should understand friendship not as a luxury, but as a necessity to living the good life, physically and spiritually.
He believes the goal of regularly getting together with friends is vulnerability that ultimately leads to intimacy.
There's a difference between looking out into the world side by side, and that's meaningful, and turning to each other and saying, now let's talk about each other.
Don't make the mistake, however, of substituting online connections with the real thing.
There's studies that show that, the receptors in our brain, as we scroll through reels and, we get likes on certain things, there are centers in our brains that light up for that. But that's all short-lived. And all of a sudden, we're programming our brain to have these responses from a screen.
doctors say even a little personal interaction is better than none at all.
It's okay to say hi to a stranger. Just a smile, just a quick hello. You don't know what they're dealing with that day. Not only is it good for your mental health, but it's probably great for theirs as well.
And kids feel lonely too.
It's so easy nowadays for families to come home and they just sort of isolate all separately into their own bedrooms and usually online.
Parents can help by getting kids together with their friends.
Make your home the place that you invite the friends over, buy a bunch of snacks, and maybe they watch a movie, but you got to take the phones out of their hands.
And for inspiration, Americans can look to Israel, which has next to no self-reported loneliness.
Communities don't create rituals. Rituals create communities.
In his book, The Genius of Israel, Dan Senor points out how Israelis bond over regular Hebrew rituals, such as Shabbat.
And if you go walk by any home in Israel on a Friday night, you will see whether they're secular Jews or they're very religious, traditional, observant Jews, they're all doing the same thing. And so there's this weekly ritual that brings people together.
He adds that Israelis see connecting to each other as part of something larger than themselves.
The whole notion of living in Israel is about togetherness and not just about doing whatever you do successfully on your own.
So in America, where many continue to struggle with loneliness, experts recommend a course correction by putting down the phone and prioritizing in-person relationships. Lori Johnson, CBN News.
Still ahead, an unusual college experience. It's coming up on Faith Nation. Finally tonight, a couple of students from Quinnipiac School of Health Sciences are furthering their education and bridging generations, all while living in a retirement community. Grace Misselli and Lee Sheeman moved in with 500 older adults at Masonic Care's Ashlar Village in Connecticut. It's part of the university's Students in Residence program, which places undergraduate or graduate candidates in the assisted living community for an academic year. Students learn from their senior neighbors, and they help them with activities and technology, including how to use their phones, all while continuing their studies on campus. Now, the program, which began in 2016, hopes to bridge the gap between generations. No better way to learn wisdom by embedding yourself in their community. That's a beautiful story. And that will do it for us here on Faith Nation. We hope to see you tomorrow.